In the time that I have available, I can really only address three issues. To me, the world of communication has turned upside down, and I'll go into that in a little bit of detail. Also, we as communicators, and I use the word communicators rather than public relations, because to me, public relations is only one tool of a communicator. We as communicators are coming under increased scrutiny, and that is implications for what we do and how we go about it. And the third issue is our behaviour. And forgive me, I put my hand up when I said that I don't believe we are yet a profession, because I don't believe we are. But that does not mean that we cannot act professionally. And I think that's a very important difference. If I take just the first point, which is that the world has turned upside down. Not just here, but all over the world, we used to have a communication world which was driven by the people who had the knowledge, who had the information. And that was an issue of push. They selected what they wanted to tell us, and they pushed that information out. We then moved to a period of pull. And that's where we as citizens have a right to know. And that is enshrined in law, if you like, in the Freedom of Information Acts that there are in many countries. What's happened now is that we're back to push. But the push is by people who are self-selected. And the channels of communication that are available to them are everything that digital has made possible. So what you have now are people who have opinions, and they have the means to distribute those opinions to the world. And quoting President Clinton, what globalization has done, it has not led to uniformity, it has led to diversity. So what we as communicators, in a sense, whether we're working for governments, whether we're working for commercial clients, or whether we're working for anyone else, in this new communication world, we have to accept that there is a diversity of opinion, and that diversity, one, has a right to express itself. But also, in balance, what that leads to is that we have to accept that for each opinion that we express, there is someone who has a different opinion. And we have to respect that. And that leads to what I think is very important, which is tolerance of difference. The second thing, which is very important also, is that we are coming under increasing scrutiny about what we as communicators do. It's not that people don't know what public relations is they don't necessarily understand it. I'm sure it happens in your media as it does in my media. Such and such an action is branded as a public relations exercise. It has become common to recognize that a particular slant which is put on a story is a public relations exercise. The fact that a pop singer is supporting a particular charity is a public relations exercise. People know what it is and they don't like it because it smacks of not being completely honest or of being dishonest. It smacks of taking advantage of people's opinions and emotions. And the third thing is, and the other thing that is developing globally is that, and this is partly explains why media groups, the advertisers for example, are buying up public relations companies undergoing into the area of public relations. It is because public relations is the least regulated of any of the communication disciplines. Direct marketing is heavily regulated. Advertising is heavily regulated. Public relations isn't. And what that does is it places a great deal of responsibility upon us as communicators, and particularly as public relations people, to be honest, transparent, etc., in what we do. Because we, or the possibilities of public relations, are abused. They're frequently abused. To give you an example, there is an organization called Edelman. Edelman have claimed to be a very ethical organization, but they have been caught out recently, particularly with their work for Walmart, where online Walmart claimed that there was a customer who was visiting their stores, taking photographs and giving a critique of each store, and it turned out to be a public relations stunt. We had the recent Versa Mastella instance, where they were exposed as accepting a contract to produce black propaganda, in other words, to disparage a competitor. So these are the things that are happening, and they place a great deal of emphasis upon us to act professionally. Now, by acting professionally, I think we need to do three things. One, we need to look as a profession at our governance. We need to look at the education that is being given to newcomers, and I would say the continuing education of people who are actually in the business and who are doing work, because things are, the communication possibilities are constantly changing. The challenges are constantly changing. So we need to be educated and updated about those possibilities. And also we have to accept that we do have a responsibility to society. If you look back at the history of public relations, the people who founded the associations in this field, and we're only talking about 50, 60 years ago in most cases. I was at a meeting in Latvia 10 years ago, very similar to this, where professionals, or I use the word professionals, practitioners were talking about founding an association. I went back a month ago and we celebrated the 10th anniversary of that association. So this development is new. Now, we, the International Public Relations Association, 10 years ago, also in association with editors, in association with journalists, developed what we call a Charter for Media Transparency. A Charter for Media Transparency. And what that deals with is the relationship between the communicators, public relations people, and the media. And it's a document really just about starting a dialogue between these two groups, both of whom suffer from a lack of respect. Together this can be moved forward and improved. And the principle of that charter is this, that the only criteria for something to appear in the newspaper should be editorial judgment. If we know that the piece of information that we are distributing is not correct, or will have consequences, those consequences could very well be in promoting inter-community strife, we should say, no, we are not prepared to do that. And we should also be prepared, if our client is in the marketing area, to say, no, you can't make that claim about your product because it is not substantiated, because there are surveys which indicate, for example, that that particular product has consequences, be it obesity, be it something else, be it something else. So we have to say no. And I personally think we need to go further in that we cannot say, as somebody said 100 years ago, when they were asked at a congressional hearing in the United States, where did you get your information from? I got my information from my client. Did you check whether it was true or not? No. My job as a public relations person is simply to package the information for distribution, to package it, to put it in a nice box and to put a lovely coloured ribbon on it. Package the information for dissemination. We have to go beyond that. We have to accept responsibility, not just for the transmission of the information, not just for the process, but we have to accept responsibility for the content. And I go even further. We have to accept the responsibility for the consequences. And if you think I'm alone in this, you're wrong. In the United States, which leads in these areas of litigation, often the public relations, often and increasingly, the public relations who have promoted, for example, investments, products, etc., are being named as part of those responsible for the consequences of the action. Now, the guiding principle of the International Public Relations Association is Article 19, and Article 19 of the Human Rights Act refers to the freedom of information, the freedom to express an opinion. And at the bottom of that, and the bottom line of that, is, of course, we have to respect that other people have different opinions. And what that implies is tolerance. What that implies is tolerance. So, in conclusion of these very short remarks, public relations still, globally, is very pleased to employ the pretty girls who can talk 2 sentences. Globally. But we have got to, the pretty girl, those pretty girls have their place. They have their place in communication. But we as a practice will only move towards that distant goal of professional if we change our approach. We not change our approach, but we do act professionally. And professionally is about accepting that we have to look at ourselves critically, and we have to have good governance. To me, good governance is about transparency in what we do, and it's about accountability for what we do. And we have to set in place education programs and continuing education programs which raise the standards of what we do. And finally, we have to accept that as the facilitators of communication between different groups, that we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to society, which is what the founders of the earlier of the associations 50, 60 years ago talked about. Many of those associations, by the way, have removed from their articles this responsibility to society, which is something I regret. I think we have to get back. We have to get back to that. I'm here to answer questions at any point that you like. I'm here for the full day, so if anyone wants to get in touch, please do, and I am easily reachable. Richard Linning, one word, RICHARD LINNING @AOL.com.